following the threats of tariff on U.S. and other supporters of the autonomous state of Greenland. We're being joined by Collins Nweke, to give us a bit of analysis and insight on the move. And first of all, welcome onto the program and Happy New Year to you, Mr. Nweke. I haven't seen you the entirety of the new year. I mean, it's just 19 days into the year, but Happy New Year. I mean, let's start with the potential consequences for EU and the U.S. trade. If the EU retaliates using the ACE, and could it trigger a full-blown trade war? What are we looking at?
Well, if the EU were to invoke the Anti-Coercion Instrument, ACI, against the United States, which is a retaliation, to put it in another way, it would mark a serious escalation, but not an automatic trade war. I think we need to be clear about that because there is one dilemma that, European leaders are dealing with now. On the one hand, they clearly understand that this is a domestic political signaling by Donald Trump that he could not, by all imagination, mean what he is saying. But at the same time, they also need to actually consider the best way to manage it. So for them, it's a very, very delicate issue to manage. So the Anti-Coercion Instrument is designed first as a deterrent, not a punishment tool. So if they were to use it, I mean, it will be going more or less against the very reason that it was set out. But again, lawyers will tell you that there is something called, doctrine of necessity, which they may want to invoke here. So the purpose of ACI is to signal that coercive economic or political pressure has consequences. So if they use it, that is where they are going to actually pitch the intent in terms of justification. That said, Judith, EU-US trade is the largest bilateral trade relationship in the world. Any retaliatory measures, whether tariffs, investment restrictions, or procurement exclusion, would introduce uncertainty in global supply chains, which is already strained by geopolitical fragmentation. So a full-blown trade war is unlikely unless rhetoric hardens into action on both sides. The EU understands that retaliation against a strategic ally carries systemic cost. So the preferred outcome remains de-escalation, not confrontation, but credibility requires some level of preparedness. And I believe that's what the EU is doing right now as you and I speak.
Let's look at the U.S. itself. I mean, we've seen what happened between the U.S. and Venezuela. Do you see the U.S.'s intention for Greenland being just an outright purchase or an invasion? Is there a credible risk of a military attempt to seize it in its entirety? What's the worst-case scenario we're looking at in terms of, the volatility of this administration, this dispensation for the U.S.? Yeah.
There is no credible legal or diplomatic pathway for the United States to purchase Greenland. I mean, we need to be clear about that, Judy. Greenland is not for sale. And the citizens have made this clear in the clip that you showed when they demonstrated over the weekend, I believe, on Saturday, in front of the U.S. embassy. It is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark, a sovereign EU member state. So a military seizure, like we have seen the U.S. do, now and again, would be extraordinarily unlikely and would represent a fundamental breach of international law, NATO norms, and transatlantic trust. The worst-case scenario, to come to your question directly, is not invasion per se, but strategic coercion, persistent pressure, security posturing, or unilateral actions that undermine Danish sovereignty and destabilize the Arctic region. Such a scenario would force NATO allies into an unprecedented internal crisis. That is why responsible actors on both sides are working to ensure this remains political theater, not policy. And we heard Starmer speak a moment ago in the clip that you showed. He spoke in very clear and measured language, and I believe that Europeans are known for that.
Right. Well, let's see how it unfolds the entirety of this month. I must say thank you, Mr. Collins, for taking out time to join us. Collins Nweke, their global affairs analyst, just giving us insight on tariff wars regarding Greenland.